Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Crystal and I'm a first-time mom. I gave birth to my daughter in April, so she is about 2 months old now, and I wanted to share my labor and delivery story today with you guys. First of all, I just wanted to say I could not have asked for a better birth team. Everybody that helped me there was so amazing, and I felt really taken care of and supportive, and literally just felt like I was there with just a whole bunch of friends while having a baby. If you guys are new to my channel, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes at 28 weeks. I was put on insulin. I had to constantly increase my morning insulin because I could not get my fastings under 90. My daughter was estimated at 38 weeks and 5 days to be 7 pounds and 3 ounces. I gave birth to her and she was 7.1, so just 2 ounces shy of her estimated birth weight. The whole entire time after I got diagnosed with gestational diabetes, my daughter was measuring small. She wasn't big or anything, and my fluid was normal. So in my case, my doctor was surprised that even though I had gestational diabetes and just a bad case where I couldn't control my fasting, my daughter wasn't measuring big. So we went in at 7:30 and my doctor wanted to run some blood work. The last time my doctor checked, I was only about 1.5 centimeters dilated. So when I went into the hospital, I was still the same. So she wanted to do a cervix ripening to get my cervix to soften. So we checked in, and the first thing she did was run some blood work. So she put an IV in my arm, and oh my gosh, it hurts so much. It just feels like there's like a stick in your forearm, and it's just really uncomfortable because it's still really sensitive. And at one point I had to go use the restroom, and when I was trying to get on the bed, I had to bend my arm, and oh my gosh, it hurts so much. She also strapped me with 2 monitors, one to measure baby and one to measure my contractions. After she gave me the medication, she just told me to get some rest because as it progresses, it's gonna get uncomfortable and I might have a hard time sleeping. So she just told me to try to sleep, and the whole entire night I could not sleep. And the bed was very uncomfortable, and I was also having back contractions, which made it hard to even rest. A few hours passed. She checked my cervix and I was about 2 centimeters dilated, and she did not want to do another dose of the cytosec because my uterus was contracting on its own a lot already, so she didn't want my uterus to be overworking. And so by the time it was 3 o'clock, she started Pitocin. My contractions before we started Pitocin was around I would say a 3, just regular minor period cramps. And then by the time we started Pitocin, my contractions went up to about I want to say at least a 6 or a 7. A few hours after that, it was now I think either 7 or 8 in the morning, my doctor came in and she checked, and I was 2.5 centimeters dilated, and she asked if I wanted to get my water pop or if I wanted to wait. So I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, I'm here to have a baby, might as well just get the ball rolling. She did let me know that once my water breaks, the contractions are gonna hurt more because the cushion isn't there anymore. When they pop your water, it just feels like you're peeing yourself and all this fluid is coming out. The nurses that morning that was taking care of me asked if I was gonna do an epidural. My plan was to get to 5 centimeters and do an epidural if I couldn't handle it. After they left, my contractions started to intensify. I felt like my hip bones were being crushed and the pain was radiating down towards my thighs. Every time I felt a contraction coming, I just stood really still and tried to relax as much as I can because it just hurts so much. I have heard many people say that getting induced does hurt more than just natural labor. So after that, I thought about it and I told my husband, you know what, it already hurts this much and I'm only at 2.5 centimeters. I might as well just do an epidural now and dilate in peace without any pain. So the nurse came in and I told him, you know what, I'm decided I'm gonna get an epidural. She was like, okay, let me go and check if I can find someone because they might be in surgery. So I was like, okay. So I was hoping that she could find someone, because if not, I did not know how long I would be in pain for. So good thing she came back, and within 20 minutes I was able to get my epidural. It was the same lady that spoke to me the night before about the whole entire process. I did ask my doctor prior to getting induced if there was a cutoff to getting an epidural, because I have heard many stories before where they will only let you wait a certain time, and if you don't get it after a certain time, then you can't get it anymore. But then my doctor was like, nope, there's no cutoff time. As long as you are able to sit still for them to put the needle in you, then you are more than welcome to get an epidural, even if you're 9 centimeters. So I was like, okay, that's really good to know. The lady came in and I sat at the edge of the bed. The whole entire process of getting the epidural was painless. The lady who did my epidural was so sweet. She made sure to tell me exactly what she was doing, the sensation I was gonna feel, and it was right on point with everything she was explaining to me. So it made it very easy for me to feel relaxed and just let them do their job and not feel anxious about it, because at this point it wasn't even the needle that I was afraid of. It was just the pain that I couldn't endure. And so they gave me my epidural, and then literally after that I was able to finally sleep and get some rest, because that whole entire night I could not sleep at all. So after 20 minutes of getting the epidural, they came back in to check to make sure that the medication was actually working. She took an ice pack and put it on different parts of my body to make sure that I can feel if it was really cold or just barely cold. So the epidural was working so well for me. So after all of that, my nurse gave me a peanut ball to help with the cervix ripening. So she propped my legs up, and then she just put the peanut ball in between my legs. So I just literally lay there, and she came in every few hours to kind of switch my position. I rarely ate in the hospital. All I had was literally Jello, chicken broth, yogurt, and that was it. Like, I wasn't even eating a meal because of my gestational diabetes, so I was limited to what I could eat, and I just didn't really feel hungry at all. My daughter woke up, so there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish this video without holding her. So I'm just gonna hold her, and hopefully you guys don't mind, but she's like laughing at me. After getting the epidural, I got some rest, and then fast forward 3 o'clock comes around, and at this point I was fully dilated, and I don't know why I didn't even bother to ask them, but she was like, yeah, nope, you are ready to push. So she explained the whole entire birthing process, who's all in there and what roles they play in there, so that way I'm aware of why those people are in the room with me. So I told my husband that he needed to go grab something to eat, because the last thing I need is for him to get fatigued and faint for whatever reason. And so I told him, like, if you don't go and get something to eat now, once the adrenaline kicks in, you're gonna feel really shaky, and I don't want anything to happen to him. Like, we don't need 2 of us in a hospital bed. So he went to go grab some Subway, and then he came back. I forgot to mention that they were also checking my blood sugar just to make sure that it wasn't too high or too low. Before I started pushing, my blood sugar was a little low, so she encouraged me to drink some apple juice and have some Jello just to kind of get my sugars to go up a little bit. So at this point I started pushing in the regular position with both my legs up, and then we were also doing one leg at a time. But my heartburn and indigestion was so bad that every time I like try to push, I felt like everything was coming back up. So I didn't say anything to my nurse. So after getting the epidural, it worked so good that I couldn't feel any pressure down there, which means I don't know when to push unless they told me to. So my nurse recommended that we should turn off the epidural so that I can feel some pressure, just so I know when to naturally push and I'm not just straining my body and wasting all my energy, because I'm going to be way too exhausted. And so we turned off the epidural, and then literally like 20 minutes after that I started to feel pain again. I had this one specific spot down in my lower abdomen where it would just hurt. Before I even gave birth to her, like if I got up in a certain way, I felt like I was pulling a muscle, and that particular spot was hurting so much, and every time a contraction came through, it just intensified that pain. So I was in so much pain and discomfort that I couldn't even push. And so I asked my nurse if I can get my epidural back on again. This was just roughly like 20 to 30 minutes after turning it off. So asked the anesthesia lady to come back in. They gave me some anesthesia to see if that will help me, and after 20 minutes that did not help, so they gave me some fentanyl. That also didn't help, so they were like, okay, like we'll just turn your epidural back on, they'll just put it at a low dose. So they did, and then I was so exhausted by this time. Finally told her that I was having like a lot of heartburn and indigestion, so it was making it hard for me to push. So she asked if I wanted some Tums, so I took that. And then I just fell asleep for like an hour, and after I woke back up, I felt so much more energized. My heartburn went away, and I had so much more energy. I just felt like I was ready to like give birth to my daughter. So she came back in, asked her if I can push in a different position, because I just can't do it with both my legs up. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable. I just felt like I couldn't give good pushes. So she said that I could try pushing on my side. I can't squat since I couldn't feel my legs. My legs were so numb and heavy that I couldn't even lift them. They literally felt like 600 pounds on each side. So I would have to have my husband adjust my legs, move me around. I can't remember for how long I was pushing because we were just trying to get baby's head under the pelvic bone. It was also time for them to switch nurses, and so we started pushing again. And then literally within like 5 minutes or so, they're like, okay, like you're ready, we're gonna call your doctor in. And so the nurse that was helping me all day, she was like, oh man, like she was hoping to be there for like the birth of my daughter. And then they had asked her to stay to help coach, so she was there for my whole entire birth. So by this time my doctor was in the operating room, so this other doctor came in. He was the guy, and I had no idea who he was. So he came in, he was like, hi, I'm Dr. so-and-so, and then he just like took a seat. So my nurse looked at me and was like, oh, like your doctor is in the operating room right now, but then we want to wait for her. She was like, it should only be about 30 more minutes. So she was like, let's wait for your doctor because we want your doctor to deliver you. Since she's here, she should be the one delivering you. So they told that guy doctor that I was gonna wait for my regular doctor to deliver me, so he left. Within the next 15 minutes my doctor came in. Everybody else that was also gonna be in there came in, and they were all super sweet. They introduced themselves to me to make sure I knew what they were doing. So above me there was a light, and I could see the reflection of the bed, so I can see everything down there. And when my daughter's head was coming out, sorry, TMI, and so my husband was next to me, my doctor was at the end of the bed. I had the nurse that was helping me all day track the monitor, and I had this other nurse. She was the one that helped get baby ready to be put on my chest after she was born. Again, I couldn't feel any contractions, so they had to tell me when to push. I could feel pressure down there, but then it didn't hurt. So I pushed for probably around like 5-10 minutes, and then she came out. After I pushed her out, they put her directly on my chest, and I just started crying because it was just really emotional. Like I couldn't believe that my daughter was finally here, and she had a lot of mucus in her throat, so they put her right on my chest, and then that nurse was like wiping her face down and also trying to get the mucus out of her throat so that way she can breathe. I can still remember that moment so clearly when I held her, and her butt was so little, it just like fits in my palm, and I just started crying because I just couldn't believe that my daughter was finally born. I just looked at her, and I just looked at my husband, and I was just like, I can't believe that she was my baby. Like it's just so crazy. Like I've been an aunt for a really long time, and it's just so different when it's your own baby. Like she's completely mine, no one else can take her, and it's just so different. And so I just looked at my husband. I can tell that his eyes were getting watery as well, and just holding her in my arms on my chest was just so, it was just such a sweet moment. My baby was born and she was put on my chest. She was already starting to lift her head, and so I started nursing her, and she latched on like right away, and I just had her on my chest, and then my husband cut like the umbilical cord. My mom was also in the room with us the whole time, so she literally saw her granddaughter being born. While I was holding my baby, my doctor was pushing down my stomach just to get as much blood out as they can, and then stitching me up down there. So about 1 hour after all of that, my nurse came back in to help me go to the bathroom and just kind of get me cleaned up, and she was showing me how to use like the pads, the tucks, and the mesh underwear, all of that. Since I couldn't walk because my legs were so numb, I got to sit on one of those little things while they pushed me into the bathroom. I just laid on the bed, and then they would come in every so often just to check to make sure that my bleeding was going down and make sure that I didn't have any issues or complications. My daughter did wake up from her nap, so I am gonna nurse her so that way she's not hungry. Since I was diagnosed with GD, they had to test her blood sugar before every feeding, and they wanted to feed her every 2 to 3 hours, and since I didn't have any milk, I had to supplement with formula. By the time we did her second feeding, she just wouldn't eat because she was so tired, and I knew it was because of all the drugs that I had in my body. But she passed all her sugar testing before each feed, and then by this time it was like early Tuesday morning. I was finally starting to get some movement in my legs again. I could walk a little bit, but I could feel that there was still some numbness on my upper thigh. But then I was so glad that I was finally able to eat. My mom brought me chicken soup and rice, and it was so good. My doctor came in that morning and asked if we wanted to go home that night or if we wanted to go Wednesday morning, but I told her that if we can go home that night, that will be more ideal, just so that we can come home and just kind of, you know, get back to our regular routine. And so that day I saw the lactation consultant, and I saw the pediatrician, and they also did her first PKU, and she had to do a hearing test. And the last test of the day, close to 24 hours of being born, was to check her oxygen to make sure that she was getting oxygen throughout her whole entire body. So she passed everything, and we got discharged around, I want to say almost 8 o'clock. We stopped by my parents' house to grab the rest of the chicken that we had butchered for my chicken diet, and also eat dinner, so that way when we get home we didn't have to worry about making anything. We could just get ready for bed. So that pretty much concludes my whole entire labor and delivery experience. I could not have asked for a better experience. As a first-time mom, I'm so grateful that everything went well, that there were no complications, and baby was doing fine the whole entire time, and she came out very healthy. And I'm just glad that she's here now and I get to enjoy life with her, and she's growing so fast. She's already going to be 3 months in a few weeks. Life has been so much fun just being her mommy and just learning all about motherhood. I honestly can't remember what my life was like before her, because now my whole world just revolves around her. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. And if you are a first-time mom, I wish you good luck. Just know that you'll be fine, and once you have your baby in your arms, everything doesn't matter anymore after that. I will try to link down some of my pregnancy videos in the description box if you guys are interested in watching. But other than that, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Gonna stay